In this quick walkthrough, we'll see how you can install Aegis from the source code and verify that the installation works. If you want to follow along with me, you'll need a recent version of Git installed on your system, a recent version of Minikube installed on your system, and Make as a build tool installed and running on your system as well. So if you have these, you can just follow along with me and type the commands as I do. And if you don't, you can just watch the video and install these on your own time and go over the video once again to do it yourself in your spare time at your convenience. So let's begin. I already have Minikube set up on my system, and when I do a kubectl get node, I see that it works as expected. And I'll now switch to the Aegis project folder, and to get that project folder, you can do a git clone https github.com shieldworks aegis.git. This will download and clone the Git repository to your local development workspace, wherever that is. So the first thing I do is to run a make help on my project root, which will give me this organized summary of some of the commands that I can use. One thing to check out is make help will try to display your current Docker host and your active Docker D. And if these are empty, then you'll need to execute the command listed above to populate them in your current session. Otherwise, you'll have issues while building and testing your local Aegis deployment. So I have my environment properly set up, but I'll still copy this and show you how it will be done. So I copy it and paste it here, and I remove this blank space between the dollar and the opening parentheses and press enter. And now my environment is set. And for the curious, if you run this minikube-p minikube docker-env command without the rest of the operators and parentheses and the dollar sign around it, you'll see that what it does is just to set a bunch of environment variables. So nothing fancy actually. And by the way, you also need Docker to be able to build and deploy stuff. I forgot to mention it. But other than Git, Make, Docker, and Minikube, you don't need anything else as far as I can think of to be able to deploy, run, build, and test and extend Aegis locally on your system. So what's next? I want to start building everything from scratch. So first, I will do a make k8s delete to wipe out my existing Kubernetes cluster because I want to start with a fresh blank slate, and make k8s delete will do what it sounds like. It will nuke the entire Minikube. So I won't have any Minikube at all. So I'll have to reinstall Minikube from scratch. So now let's prepare a brand new Minikube cluster ready to deploy Aegis onto it. And to do that, I'll run a make help again to see what's the next command that I can use. And yeah, we need a cluster, so I need to do make k8s start. So let's do that, make k8s start, which will take its time again. And finally, it will create me a blank Minikube cluster and an empty container registry that I can use locally to push my container images so that I can test everything locally. So, okay, we are all set, and I can verify it by doing a kubectl get nodes and getting the node list of my cluster, which is a single node because this is a development cluster anyway. So what's next? Let's do a make help again to see what we can do next. So we want to build our source code into container images, and for that I'll run a make build local because I want to use the local Kubernetes registry on my machine to speed up my development cycles, and also I want to first test my local development, and if everything is well, this current version of Aegis passes the integration tests at least, only then I will tag a new release and push it to the global Docker registry, so that at the very least you can be sure that anything that's put in the global registry has been tested at least once and it has been running and working and passing the integration tests on a system. So therefore you can have a level of trust for the published images in the official Aegis Docker Hub registry. So let's run make help and again see what the next step is. So make deploy local. Again, the local suffix means that I'll fetch the resources that I want to deploy to my system from my local container registry, not from the public registry on Docker Hub. So make deploy local. This will again take its time. And when it's done, you can query Spire system and Aegis system namespaces to verify that Spire and Aegis components are installed on your system and everything is running perfectly, things are healthy, life is good and all. So now let's verify if the current state of this project and if the current state of this deployed components that we just built from the recent source code pass the integration tests. So again, I'll do a make help to see what the next command is, because I hate memorizing, so I just look it up. And the next command is make test local, which will fetch the local use case images, deploy them, and test them to verify that those use cases at least work as expected without any issues. So make test local. This will take a while again, and every now and then hopefully you'll see these pass notifications and those yay icons. And when everything passes successfully, this integration test script will exit with a 0 success status code. Now let's see what pods we have on the system. I'll do a kubectl get POW. And this is a demo workload that has been deployed during one of those tests. And if I tail its logs, I can see that it is able to receive its secrets successfully, and it's displaying them on the console like you see it here. So let's do something else. Let's deploy a different use case to test various other use cases. So what am I going to do? Well, make help again. I'll run make help to see what use cases are there available to me to deploy, at least officially. And I'll deploy a use case that uses Aegis sidecar by running a make example sidecar deploy local. And again, local means use the recent images from the local registry, so don't refer to the global registry, use them from what you have locally on the machine. So running this command will deploy a new pod, and when I tail its logs, you'll see that initially it will struggle a little bit. It will try to fetch its secret, but there is no secret there. So it will give a warning because that secret hasn't been mounted to its volume yet. And after a while, Aegis will do its magic, and this wait time is also configurable. It's intentionally waiting a little bit to show that this transition phase is happening actually. And by default, it is 20 seconds by the time of this demo at the very least. But regardless, after a while, it will find the mounted secret and it will continue displaying its contents again. And if I go to Aegis system and tail the logs of Aegis safe, you can see a more detailed breakdown of what's happening on the secrets manager side. So by default, the logs of Aegis safe and actually any Aegis component has been configured to the highest verbosity level. So these things will be really chatty when you look into them, which is great for a development setup. But for production, I would recommend to set them to like debug only or error only or like fatal only kind of a level. And this is also configurable from the environment variable. Having these high verbosity, at least during the initial rollout, the day 0 installation of Aegis, will help you a lot to diagnose your day 0 issues and make your initial setup and configuration easier and more robust. And when you make sure that things are fine, everything is working well, then you can reduce the log verbosity to error only or maybe to debug only. And that will reduce the chatter, which is good for production because like logs are not cheap, log rotation is not cheap, log storage is not cheap. So you'd prefer to have the information that you only need in your log files essentially. And also you can update these log verbosity levels dynamically without having to even restart Aegis safe. There is a way to do that. And that being said, as far as building Aegis from the source code, deploying it to your system, verifying and testing that everything works, and even deploying different use cases to test things out even further, and maybe even writing your own use cases and testing them goes. That's all there is to it for now, and I'll see you in the upcoming Aegis videos.